Moonlight. Jian owned 4 rattan chairs. Of everything in his house, those 4 chairs were the only things of any value. He had not bought them. Jian hated buying things. Since setting up a household of his own, he had made only one purchase, a pomelo wood bed from an impoverished aunt. She needed the money to buy medicine for her husband's malarial fever, while Jian happened to need a bed. His wife had given birth to a son the previous March. That meant they now had 2 children, 4 people in the family, all 4 of them piled onto a single bed. In winter, it might have been tolerable. Crowding together made them warmer. But in the hot season, what became of hygiene? Once in a blue moon, Jian still remembered that one ought to observe the rules of hygiene. After all, he was an educated man. He had once taught at a private school for nearly 3 years, and that was how Jian came by the 4 rattan chairs just mentioned. The year before, the school where Jian taught the highest class for a monthly salary of 20 piastres had suddenly been closed. The buildings had to be given over to some other purpose, one considered more urgent in those times. The headmaster still owed Jian half a month's salary. The final month's tuition had not yet been collected. But they were friends. How could they settle the matter without making things awkward? Had the headmaster been able to scrape the money together, he would gladly have paid Jian the 10 piastres at once, preserving both their dignity. But he could not. And surely Jian could not simply be expected to bear the loss. Well then, how was he to put it? With an embarrassed smile, the headmaster said, "Here is what we shall do, Mr. Jian. Provided you do not mind, take the set of rattan chairs home with you." The old noodle seller offered only 70 cents apiece. Why, restringing just 2 of them cost me a whole piastre the other day. It would be a shame to sell them to him. Besides, you have no chairs at home. Jian had to make an effort to keep his face from falling. In truth, he was bitterly disappointed. He did not want the 4 chairs at all. Good heavens, they might be called rattan chairs, but what chairs they were. One was crooked, another had 4 shrunken, twisted legs, and there was not a single one whose varnish had not peeled away like the skin of a leper. They were a miserable sight. Paying 70 cents for a railway ticket to carry himself back to the countryside already pained him enough. Now, in place of the money owed to him, he was to spend even more transporting those 4 decrepit chairs. Yet, it would have been awkward to refuse. It might look as though he were sulking. The headmaster might feel humiliated. Jian did not want that, for the 2 of them were fellow sufferers in poverty. The outside world had humiliated them often enough. They ought not to humiliate one another. Jian was still searching for an excuse to decline when the headmaster continued. "You should travel by river boat. The fare cannot be more than 50 cents. 50 cents plus another 5 makes 55. Even allowing for the cost of carrying the 4 chairs, you will spend no more than you would on the train. And there will be plenty of room. You can set out 2 chairs, one to sit on and another for your feet, and travel as comfortably as though you were in your own home. Why squeeze yourself into a train when there is no need?" It was not a bad idea. He would avoid having to drive his elbows into other people's chests in the struggle for a railway ticket. He would avoid sitting on someone else's lap and having someone else sit on his. And he would not have to breathe the mingled stench of sweat and pig manure in the 4th-class carriages. But still, the headmaster did not wait for Jian to say anything. He had already guessed his concern. "Do not worry about getting the chairs to the boat. I shall have the boy tie them together in pairs and carry them to the landing with a water pole. From the landing to your house, you can hire some child for 5 or 10 cents. Jian calculated silently. At the very most, the entire journey would cost him about 1 piastre. That was only 20 cents more than the train, 20 cents for 4 rattan chairs. Even if they were crooked and battered, they were still exceedingly cheap. Jian agreed, and so the headmaster's 4 rattan chairs, for which the noodle seller had offered 70 cents apiece, traveled by riverboat to Jian's village. That was how Jian came to own 4 rattan chairs. He did not know their true value, but he guessed that new ones must be expensive. Perhaps each would now cost 3 or 4 piastres. 3 or 4 piastres for a single chair. That meant the whole set might be worth nearly 20. There was not another house in Jian's hamlet with furniture so costly. His wife treasured them. It caused her real anguish whenever some coarse country visitor, after loudly admiring the elegance and beauty of the chairs, planted a backside as broad as a great earthen jar upon the seat, making the woven strands sink beneath him. Then he would draw up both his filthy feet and lean his ox-like back against the rim until the whole chair bowed backwards under his weight. How could any chair survive such treatment? Even an iron chair would break, let alone one made of rattan. One day, she said to her husband, "Listen, dear, country people are terribly careless. When we possess something valuable, we ought to look after it. Why do we not put the rattan chairs away? Otherwise, everyone who enters will climb onto them and squat there, and before long, they will be fit only for the rubbish heap." At first, Jian burst out laughing. He thought of the stinginess of women. They made clothes only to store them away. They bought chairs only to forbid anyone from sitting on them. He was about to object, but after a moment's thought, he agreed. Surely his wife understood the management of a household better than he did. Besides, he was now little more than a dependent. His wife had to provide even the 5 cents for his haircut. Since she had taken the whole burden of the family upon her shoulders, it was only right that she should have some authority within the home. Otherwise, she might say that Jian did not care whether anything was broken because he would not be the one who had to pay to replace it. From that day onward, the 4 rattan chairs hung from 4 hooks beneath the outer eaves. Only when a distinguished guest came to visit would Jian bring them inside. But on moonlit evenings, even when there were no guests, Jian carried all 4 chairs into the courtyard. Then he called his wife and children outside. His wife sat in one chair, holding the baby. The older child had another. Jian used the remaining chair as a footrest. They sat there waiting for the moon to rise, provided the baby did not cry and the older child did not demand to be scratched. Their happiness was complete. The wind scattered all the anxieties and bitterness accumulated within their hearts. The moonlight caressed their skin like cool water. Their bodies softened. Every trace of strain disappeared. The creases vanished from his wife's forehead, and her face brightened. She seemed 10 years younger. How gentle she became in those moments of rest. How lovable. Jian could see nothing in her that resembled the scowling woman who spent her days opening her mouth to scold the children, the servant girl, the cat and the dog, filling the house with noise from morning until night. She bent over the baby while raising affectionate eyes towards the older child. The child smiled at her. She smiled back. Then she smiled at her husband. Jian looked at his wife and children, his heart full of happiness. He smiled at the moon. Jian loved the moon very much. That was natural enough, for his mind was steeped in poetry. Only those who had read poetry could understand how beautiful and precious the moon was. The moon was a golden sickle among the stars. The moon was a silver plate resting upon the velvet fabric of the sky. The moon scattered dreams over the earth. The moon poured down cool streams in which thirsty souls might immerse themselves. Moon, O moon, that full, dreaming breast caressed by the poets of every age. Jian had no regrets. His parents had not wasted their fields and gardens by selling them to pay for his education. Admittedly, their only ambition had been to see their son become a clerk or an official and make the family prosperous. They had been utterly disappointed when he came so close to success, only to fail at the final step. Jian's constitution was too weak for him to be accepted into government service. His parents had quickly concluded that the money spent on his education had simply been thrown into the river. But Jian believed that although his education had failed to earn him a living, it had still been of great use to him. If nothing else, it had enabled him to read poetry and literature. Through poetry and literature, he had learned to understand the beauty of the wind and the moon. He felt sorry for barren souls, such as his wife's. To her, the moon meant only one thing. It saved them 2 cents worth of lamp oil. Peanut oil now cost 2 piastres a liter. When nations went to war, poor families suffered too. Every evening, she lit the lamp for only a little while, but even that little while consumed 2 cents worth of oil. On moonlit nights, she saved those 2 cents. 2 cents were nothing, but 10 lots of 2 cents made 20 cents. 10 lots of 20 cents made 2 piastres, and 10 lots of 2 piastres. Good heavens, if one went on calculating like that, where would it end? Why must she always calculate everything? Those who spent their entire lives calculating merely condemned themselves to a lifetime of suffering. That was what Jian always reproached his wife for. He never suspected that he suffered from the very same habit. Even now, as he sat admiring the moon in an attempt to forget the petty worries of human life, he continued to make idle calculations. He saw how vast the sky was and how numerous the stars. He remembered a line by a Western poet comparing the starry heavens to a field. If the sky were a field, it was an immeasurably vast one. If Jian possessed only a patch the size of the piece visible behind the roof of his house, it would be enough to free him forever from the struggle to survive. He would give the land to his wife to manage. Then he would be free to pursue his dream. It was a literary dream. There had been a time when Jian read diligently and wrote constantly. He had yearned to become a writer. He had been willing to endure all the deprivation and humiliation that writers in his country were forced to bear. He often told a friend who shared his ambitions, "I would gladly refuse a position paying hundreds of piastres a month, provided I could earn 5 piastres from writing." But after writing continuously for several years, Jian had not earned a single coin. Meanwhile, he still had to eat. His family was utterly destitute. His younger brothers and sisters could not attend school. They could not even eat their fill. Poverty produced endless quarrels. Jian's father abandoned the family. His mother hired herself out to carry burdens so that she could feed her 2 youngest children. The older children went into service. One looked after another family's baby. Another tended buffaloes. Another begged for banana blossoms or handfuls of sweet potatoes, carried them to a distant market and sold them for a few cents, just enough to keep from starving. Jian saw that he had been selfish. What use was a career now? His duty was to think of his family. He had to rebuild it. He had to set aside his literary dream and earn money. So Jian became a teacher. Good heavens, teaching brought him only 20 piastres a month. His mother thought that such an income made him almost wealthy. She insisted that he marry. His wife came from a reasonably prosperous family. She married Jian because he was an educated man. Then they had children. Jian had done nothing to help the large family into which he had been born. Now he had burdened himself with another small family of his own. There was not a single moment when he did not have to think about money. His mind was crammed with petty worries. Sometimes, when he suddenly remembered his old dream, he sighed. He comforted himself by thinking, "When I have money, I shall write again." But Jian knew that he would never write again, because he was certain that he would never have money for as long as he lived. Tonight, there was moonlight once more, but Jian brought only 2 chairs into the courtyard. His wife had been rushing about all day. The servant girl had asked for leave to attend a death anniversary feast. His wife had also been weaving a length of cloth, which she intended to sell the following day to pay the interest on a debt. When she finished weaving, she hurried away to collect some money that was owed to her. By the time she returned, the baby had cried itself hoarse. The older child was filthy, her face smeared with mucus. The house was still in disorder. The servant girl had not returned. How could one woman possibly manage everything in time? Her anger began to boil. She stamped her feet and called upon heaven. She struck the older child, cursed the baby, flung down the broom, kicked a basket, and muttered angrily to no one in particular. Then she carried the baby to bed early. The older child sobbed until she too fell asleep. Jian sat alone outside. He tried to remain indifferent, yet the skin of his face prickled. It seemed to grow thick and numb. He felt almost humiliated. His wife probably loved him very much, but she understood only that a person needed rice to eat, clothes to wear, and medicine when he fell ill. She devoted herself to providing those 3 things for her husband. She went hungry so that he could eat. She went without clothes so that he could be clothed. She had even sold her bodice and garments to pay for his medicine. She imagined that this was enough to make her husband happy, but it was not. Jian had grown accustomed to passionate feelings and tender words. His wife's scowling face, her harsh voice, and above all her excessively simple, one might almost say primitive manner of loving caused him pain. He felt that his emotional life was impoverished. He had no one to love. If he remained in this family forever, surrounded forever by these petty worries, his heart would run dry, and with it would dry the precious spring of poetry which he still hoped one day to uncover again. Above him, the moon dallied, like a young girl who had just taken her first lover. The wind placed the delicate footsteps of a dancer upon the leaves. The moon-glazed banana fronds swayed languidly. Jian thought of idle women who had just bathed in fragrant water, dressed themselves in blue silk, and laid their soft bodies upon swinging chairs, languorously stretching their legs. Why had such seductive images suddenly entered his mind? Jian himself could not understand. Perhaps he longed for fragrant hair, cool, smooth skin, and a caressing hand. There were beautiful women who knew how to love with exquisite skill because they ate well, dressed beautifully, cared for their bodies, and did nothing else. Yes, his wife was only a coarse, vulgar creature. She was not worthy of his love, nor was she worthy of his pity. Jian must leave. He must leave in order to preserve the freshness of his heart. He would do anything necessary to earn enough to live. Then, in peace, he would write. Only in such circumstances could his writing possess a soul. His words must be beautiful. His ideas must be noble. His pen must open a spring of poetic feeling. Art was the mysterious blue moonlight that made even ordinary and ugly scenes appear beautiful. Again, Jian saw the graceful figures of idle women reclining upon gently swinging chairs. Those women would read his work. Their souls would grow more beautiful. They would love him. They would send him dainty little letters, scented with perfume. Jian's imagination spread out like moonlight. He thought of romantic affairs with beautiful women who knew nothing but adornment and love. The sounds of angry scolding drifted from inside the house. At once, the moon lost its beauty. Jian lowered his head, ashamed, like a man caught committing some disgraceful act. He listened. His wife's sharp voice demanded, "What is it? Their daughter answered through her sobs, "My stomach hurts." "Merciful heaven!" It was Jian's wife groaning. Then she scolded the child. "You're always eating things you should not. If you die, you will have no one but yourself to blame." The child did not dare cry loudly. She merely writhed and made small, strangled noises in her throat. From time to time, when she could restrain herself no longer, a sob burst out. Jian heard several sounds like those of someone retching. He remained sitting with his head bowed. A bitterness that felt almost physical gathered inside him. It rose towards his throat and surged into his head. Tears filled his eyes. His wife gently laid the exhausted sleeping baby in the hammock. Taking a knife, she went into the garden, dug up several pieces of ginger, washed them and pounded them. She squeezed half a lemon into the mixture. That was the poor man's cure for every illness. She strained the liquid and brought it to her daughter. At the first smell of ginger, the little girl became frightened. She pressed her lips tightly together. No matter how her mother coaxed her, she refused to drink. Her mother picked her up and laid her on her back across her lap. With one hand, she supported the child's head. With the other, she pressed the cup of ginger juice against her lips. The girl clamped her mouth shut. Losing patience, her mother shouted, "Open your mouth!" The girl began to cry. The ginger juice poured straight into her mouth. She writhed like a leech sprinkled with lime. She spat and spluttered. She screamed. Ginger juice sprayed all over her mother's clothes. The baby boy awoke with a start and began shrieking. Furious, Jian's wife struck the sick child sharply across the back and threw her onto the bed as though she were throwing away a cat. "To hell with you! Go ahead and die!" The girl screamed and pleaded. "I beg you, Ma. It burns. I beg you, Ma. My mouth is burning." "Be quiet this instant, or I shall slap your face to pieces." The child still could not stop. Her mother glared and moved as though she were about to seize her. "Are you going to be quiet or not?" Terrified, the girl forced herself into silence, but small moans continued to escape her. Jian loved his daughter dearly. In an instant, he understood that he could never leave. He could not be happy while his child continued to suffer. Oh, how beautiful the moon was! It was gentle, clear, and serene. Yet inside the ruined huts, whose exteriors the moonlight made beautiful, how many people were writhing, sobbing, and grimacing beneath the pain of their lives. How much grinding of teeth, how many curses, how much misery and degradation. No, Jian could not dream. Cruel reality was always there before him. Reality destroyed the romantic dreams planted in his mind by the literature of those who had too much leisure. Jian wished to avoid reality, but how could he escape it? His wife suffered, his children suffered, his parents suffered, Jian himself suffered. And how many others lived in the same circumstances and suffered as he did? Suffering withered so much of what was fresh and beautiful in human nature. The cries of suffering rang out with overwhelming force. "Oh God! Oh God!" Art did not have to be deceptive moonlight. Art might simply be the cry of suffering, rising from lives of misery and echoing powerfully within Jian's heart. Jian did not need to go anywhere. He did not need to escape. He would remain in the midst of suffering and open his soul to receive every reverberation of life. The following morning, Jian sat down to write. He wrote amid the crying of his children, the angry voice of his wife, and the shrill demands of creditors at the entrance to the hamlet, and amid the curses of a neighbor whose chicken had been stolen during the night.